Gentlemen, Team Liquid picking up the first victory here against CLG. So very happy for that. They'll be very happy, rather, with that win. We had some discussions about whether or not a surging CLG would look dominant against Team Liquid, but they actually seem to be fairly evenly matched. As we saw the early game, lots of kills being traded back and forth because of pressure provided by the junglers, you know, in all sorts of sorts of fashions. But before we dive into the actual gameplay itself, we kind of saw teams return to a more standard meta here, whereas yesterday we saw a couple things deviate a little bit. We had the Taric and the Sonas come out, that kind of stuff. Today, these two teams, CLG, Team Liquid, are saying we're going to play what's comfortable, what we've known for the past couple weeks.
And I think it's really good for CLG to get a comp like this, where they have the playmaking from their bot lane with the Ashe and the Bard, basically a double global engage tool. Having that, but the problem was that the solo laners, in order to get what looked like good picks, they had to be taken in an order that allowed TL to get counter picks. And I think the gnar one in particular is a little rough, but I think the Vlad Cassio shouldn't go that bad, and there was just some mistakes being made in the matchup where you get solo kill level 3. It's not that bad.
Yeah, Dyrus, we saw that solo kill level 3 Cassio into Vladimir. That definitely set HuHi behind and Fenix far ahead for the remainder of the game.
Some people might say that HuHi not going pool at level 3 would be like the reason why he died, but because he was already in that position in the first place, he was already like, he shouldn't be trading that hard against Cassio early. And that was a big, big factor of the game. There's a lot of like early game kills and a lot of, you know, it's just a huge bloodbath in general. But the mid control kind of decided the entire flow of the game. And to explain that, I'll explain as we talk about it more.
All right, yeah, so then we'll go ahead and start rolling this out. Both junglers, as we mentioned, had a huge early presence in the game. Xmithie making the first move down bot lane. Great flash cocoon here on Matt to pick up the first kill for CLG. It will be second blood because...
just seconds earlier.
Yeah, just seconds earlier, Cassio had killed Vladimir in the mid lane. But Dardoch, very smart return gank for himself.
Right, and I like how he doesn't worry about the bar, go on the flashless Ashe here. They get him. What was really interesting was that first Xmithie gank, taking the repel over the Dragon Wall to escape any possible TL wards. Here is just a return gank that TL's pushed up with.
Yeah, all sums are blown.
Yeah, this is just minutes later, basically. It's still level 3. He goes down as well, and then...
But here's the return gank to mid now after the blown flashes from that first blood, Dyrus.
Yeah, so what basically happened here was he didn't have pool, and Dardoch was a step ahead all the time, and the reason for that is because Fenix got a solo kill on HuHi, which allowed them to have slightly more tempo. So even though there was ganks going on bottom from both sides, because Fenix was ahead middle, Dardoch was allowed to like go around more. So he came mid, got the kill, and with the mid pressure, he was able to go into their bottom jungle. You saw that Dardoch left bottom alone once, and CLG 4-man bot, and Dardoch was able to walk top because he had the, you know, the tempo, and he just got kills all over the map.
Well, it's amazing how freeing it is as a jungler to have a winning mid laner in particular, just because you now have that kind of guaranteed protection. Anytime I path maybe through the river, I can have a quicker response from my mid laner who's got the pressure as opposed to the opposing jungler.
Right, and I think we have to give Lourlo some props too. He was just winning that matchup. It is favorable for Irelia, but he was up, you know, 15, 20 CS. Xmithie threw a gank up there. He escaped trading flashes, comes out just fine. And the fact that they were able to, once their bot lane started losing hard, the fact that they could flip it top side to a winning matchup and be able to snowball that side of the map as well, and not necessarily sacrifice their bot lane because they were still farming relatively well, but to say we don't need our bot lane to carry, we're going to use the other 2 solo laners.
Well, as Team Liquid is on your screen here talking about what they might do for game 2, I'm going to push us ahead just because we did see a lot of early action. However, that didn't necessarily net an insurmountable gold lead for either team because there was very much the give and the take. It wasn't until about here, 26 minutes into the game, 5 for 2 for Team Liquid near the red buff. Lourlo's going to pick up a quadra in this. This is that big influx of gold they need to kind of push themselves over the limit.
Right, it's actually a little scary of a start because they're trying to pick off the Elise on a rotation down to the Irelia. They fail that, and then they get a big counter engage from the Ashe era into HuHi coming up in the middle of the team. But throughout this whole fight, Lourlo's running free, just picking up all the stragglers, and he ends up getting a quadra.
While I do think that early game didn't decide the game, I feel like in a lot of these decisive fights, Fenix was able to put out the damage that his team needed to win all of these fights.
Yeah, next up, 31-30 into the game. We've got a 5-for-1 in the top lane, which wasn't even a 5-for-5 fight here because Dardoch had already previously been picked off, as you see right here. So a 4v5 will net an ace for Team Liquid. Fenix coming up massive in this team fight.
Yeah, you want to talk about Fenix's damage in team fights. This will highlight it pretty well. What I think is actually pretty interesting is that his Cassio only hits 1, which allows him to keep kiting the Gnar away from the Vladimir. So Vladimir's still not in range. If he actually hit a double ult, him DPSing one of them will put him in range of both.
Yeah.
But here he's able to basically kite one out, get the Lourlo, then the Vlad comes in range and hits him. So it's actually surprisingly beneficial. Meanwhile, on the top side, CL's just winning the other part of the fight. But it's pretty easy because that's just a 3v3, actually.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah, Fenix definitely huge carry this game.
Right.
I think it was the highest DPS by like, or DPM by like a pretty significant margin. It's like 26K or something.
Already with the Baron buff there, they push down, take 2 inhibs. They do recall, but they use those 2 inhibs to properly set up the 4-1 split with Lourlo being a monster in the top lane. They close out the game. Player of the game, though, going to Fenix on that Cassiopeia. We just can't ignore, 1, the solo kill, 2, the amount of damage. As we see here, his damage percentage for the team, 35% over the course of the game. So huge impact from him.
As a team, they played the tempo really well, but one of the key factors in this game was that Fenix had control over mid lane, and just like in chess, if you have control of the middle of the board, you have more control over the entire map.
Dude, I love that. The chess.
I was like, Dyrus plays chess?
Now I'd like to learn. We're going to have a chess talk because I'm not too practiced in that game, but I respect the analogy. All right, well, that's going to close game 1 here for Team Liquid versus CLG. The victory going to Team Liquid. We'll see if CLG can bounce back in game 2. If they're going to do so, my question to you guys is how exactly do they do it? Because they stayed in their comfort zone in Champ Select, and that's something we've been talking about for them all split long. Do they have to go outside their comfort zone here, or is it about the gameplay?
I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, where there's not a safe meta top lane blindable pick, and people often end up leaving themselves open to a counter pick. Here they blind take the Gnar. Irelia is the obvious counter pick. And you can't ban the Irelia because then you can just free take the Gnar,
right.
Red side, first rotation because you get 2 picks. So it's a weird setup where I think getting red side will actually favor CLG a lot, where now they can give Darshan the counter pick, and you might see that flip how these games go.
We'll see if the solo laners benefit from counter picks.
I think a lot of it goes to like how they really play their champions. It wasn't really about having the better picks, but how they played it together. And while both comps were very good, it was clear that TL played it slightly better.
Absolutely, they did. So game 1 goes to Team Liquid. We're headed to a break, but when we return, we'll see if Liquid can take game 2 and close out the series, or if CLG will force a game 3. And stay tuned after the highlights for a sneak peek at the reunion of League's oddest couple.